Hey leader, David Burkus here, organizational psychologist and author of 4 best-selling books on helping leaders and teams do their best work ever. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the 4 common mistakes that newly appointed leaders make. Welcome to leadership. Welcome to your newly appointed position as the team leader. Or if you've been in leadership for a while, don't click away because we've still got a lot of stuff that'll help you grow. In truth, I think every leader should think of themselves as a new leader because we are always growing. We are always actually just emerging leaders. We are always improving our leadership, and hopefully we're working to always improve our team. And toward that end, I thought it'd be useful to put together some of the things that I've seen in my work with a variety of different companies from a variety of different industries and all of the sectors, for-profit, nonprofit, government, etc., in the mistakes that new leaders make, the things that'll make their leadership less effective, the things that may make them, dare I say, just a team manager and not a team leader. So in this video, we're going to talk about the 4 most common mistakes that I'm seeing new leaders make and how to correct them. So the first big mistake that new leaders, or really all leaders, make is calling the shots, or at least calling all of the shots. You've just joined this team. Maybe you've been promoted from an individual contributor, member of the team, to the team leader, or maybe it's a brand new team. But in any case, it's a group of people who know that you don't necessarily know what you're talking about. Now, there may be a variety of reasons why you were trusted in that new leadership role, but let's be honest. The likelihood that you're gonna join a team, or you're gonna join a new team, a new situation, that you're gonna start a new project, and you're gonna know exactly what to do to turn that team around or to lead them to that next level, I mean, that's really, really slim. There are few and far between them situations in which new leaders know exactly what has to turn around. Instead of calling all the shots, start with listening. Start trying to figure out what's actually going on in the team. Start trying to figure out what the external and maybe even the internal factors that were leading to diminished performance were right off the bat. Start with a listening tour before you start calling the shots. Start trying to understand the entire situation, and then maybe even encourage people to solicit their feedback. This is actually like the most common thing that I coach new leaders on, is when you've just joined a new team, start asking some of the veteran players on the team, what would you change if you were in charge? You may not actually do it, right? But the odds are, depending on the leadership of the team in the past, or maybe the leaders that those team members have had in the past, but now that it's a new team, maybe there's a new start, there's a great opportunity to look back and ask people the things that were blocking their progress. But you are only gonna get that feedback right off the bat. If you come in guns blazing and start calling all of the shots, you're never gonna get that feedback. You're not gonna send the message that you're open to that feedback. Or if you are gonna get it, it's going to be a very long time before people trust you. So don't call all the shots. Start with listening first and figure out what shots even need to be called. And then is there a way we could call them together? The second mistake that new leaders make is solving problems solo. So you are the new team leader, which means all of the team's problems fall on your desk, or I guess in your email inbox, right? And when an individual member of the team comes to you with a problem, it's so tempting, right? Because maybe we're going for inbox 0, or maybe we just want to be the hero. That rhymed, by the way. That was pretty clever. That was totally unintentional. But it's so tempting to just come in and solve the problem right away. Instead of thinking about who else is affected by the problem, who else might be causing the problem, and bring that into the conversation. That's what I mean when I say solving problems solo is a huge mistake that new leaders could make. Because people are gonna come to you, especially if you're new to the team leader, people are gonna come to you and kind of jockey for position. There's gonna be all these little political games that some people are gonna, and you don't have the context to understand any of that. So don't try and solve problems right away, and especially don't try and solve them in a one-on-one conversation with the person who brought that problem to you. Think about the other people on your team who can help or who are affected by the problem. Invite them into that conversation and solve it together. This actually has the benefit we were talking about in the first one around calling all the shots as well, because again, we're bringing the team in, we're listening, we're trying to understand the context. But in this case, we're doing it around the problems that we're facing instead of the new actions we're going to take. The end result is the same. A team that feels listened to, heard, and is much more likely to speak up in the future. And that's going to help you way more than finding the problem right away, even if you could find the problem right away. The third mistake that new leaders make often is focusing on process, or at least focusing on process too much. No, I get it, right? You're leading a team. That team is a collection of jobs. That job is a bundle of tasks. The team is faced with a project. So it's very, very process driven, right? We need to figure out what processes we can improve, what processes we can make more efficient, right? We need to figure out all the tasks we have to do to get the objective, to get the mission done. So I get it. It can be really, really tempting to focus on process. And you can't ignore process, but instead of focusing on process, focus on people, right? You're not going to be able to make the right calls about how we're changing the process, how we're making it more efficient, until you have a really deep understanding of people. You know, I talk about this often, the importance of shared understanding or common understanding, the importance of growing a team where everyone is aware of what each other's knowledge, skills, and abilities are, the context, the work preferences, how we're giving each other feedback, and even how we're going to keep each other up to date on where we are on the individual tasks that help us achieve that process. Focus on that first. If the team is already communicating just to you and not to each other well, that's not necessarily a process thing, that's a people thing we need to change. If the team is unaware of whose strengths and weaknesses are what, that's something you need to figure out and share out with the team. You didn't necessarily get to pick the team. If you did, congratulations, that's actually pretty awesome, but that's rare. And so it's your job as a leader to focus on people and understand the people that you're on, build a sense of common understanding on the team, and then as a team, then you can focus on process. But while you're focused on process, don't neglect number 4, the biggest mistake that leaders make, which is overlooking purpose, overlooking the why, overlooking the who is helped by the work that we do. Now, if you're familiar to watching a lot of the videos, you know I'm a big believer in purpose, but there's a reason for that. It's a big motivator. It's a big factor in whether or not the team is going to accomplish its objectives or whether or not it's going to stay middle of the pack as a team. And when I say overlooking purpose is the mistake, I get it. There's all sorts of fires to fight. There's all sorts of processes to improve. There's all sorts of problems to solve. We've been talking about that for most of this video. But we need to remember that the thing that's going to drive your team to actually solve all those problems is that sense of internal motivation. And the single best thing you can do to grow that sense of internal motivation is to help them understand the progress they're making towards meaningful goals. That word meaning is where we get purpose. So figure out ways that you can bring purpose back to the center. Maybe that's by bringing in customers, internal or external, doesn't matter, stakeholders, the people who are served by the work that they do. Bringing them in for a conversation about why their work is so important, or at least capturing some stories that you can share with the team. Your job as a leader is chief storytelling officer a lot of times, to tell the stories that help people connect the work that they do on a daily basis back to purpose. There's a lot of work to do on a daily basis. I get it. And because of that, it can be easy to overlook purpose. But doing that is one of the biggest mistakes that leaders make, because you may have a more process efficient team. You may have a team that solves problems faster, but if they're doing it without that sense of purpose, then they're not doing it with the same level of motivation that they could be doing it at, but B, and this is way more important, they're headed much more likely to burn out if they are. If they're working hard towards purposeless, meaningless goals, then they're just headed to burnout, and you will not be leading the best team you can, at least for a very long time. So don't overlook purpose. Don't focus too much on the process. Remember, that was number 3. Right? Don't solve problems solo, bring the whole team in. That was number 2. And don't call all of the shots. Listen first, figure out what shots need to be called. Maybe the biggest thing you find as the new leader, it goes from 1 right to 4. It's that purpose element, but you never know until you join the team, you start listening, you start making the conversation much more about we than me and you. Leading a team is cultivating a group of relationships, not just these one-on-one individual process-oriented relationships. And if you don't understand that, then you are headed for one of these 4 mistakes. But if you watch this video all the way to the end, now you know you're not. You know how to avoid these mistakes. You know how to have a more motivated team that solves more problems. You know how to build the best team ever, or at least the best team that you can.